When God sends a warning into the life of a chosen one, it is never about fear, panic, or intimidation. God has never operated from a place of terror. He operates from a place of love, wisdom, and divine foresight. A warning from God is an act of mercy, a form of spiritual rescue long before the danger reaches your door. Many people misunderstand divine warnings because they focus on the discomfort of the message instead of the protection behind it. But God sees the traps before they are set. He hears conversations you were never meant to hear. And He knows the true intentions of people long before they reveal themselves. When you are chosen, God will often interrupt your comfort to preserve your calling. He warns you not to frighten you, but to save the purpose He planted inside you. Some warnings come as a whisper in the soul, a sudden uneasiness, a shift in your spirit that you can't explain. You may not have proof, but you have a feeling. That feeling is not random. It is divine intelligence. It is God's way of telling you that something ahead is not aligned with His plan for your life. He may block you from entering a relationship, stop you from signing a deal, or pull you away from a person whose motives are hidden behind charm and familiarity. When God warns you, He is not trying to limit you, He is trying to lift you. A chosen one cannot be protected in the same way everyone else is protected. You require instructions, alerts, and signals because your destiny carries weight, your influence carries power, and your future carries impact. Sometimes a warning will come through discomfort. You will find yourself trying to explain why you can't trust someone, why something feels wrong, and why your spirit rejects what your mind cannot yet understand. When God gives you that friction, He is saying, don't settle here. Don't partner with this. Don't ignore what I'm showing you. The truth is, chosen people do not have the luxury of ignoring spiritual signals. If you belong to God, He will interrupt your peace before He allows someone to destroy your purpose. He will shut doors, disrupt plans, and even remove people, all to protect what He placed inside you. That is not punishment. That is preservation. And sometimes a warning comes through revelation. God will show you glimpses of someone's true nature, maybe through their actions, maybe through their words, or maybe through a moment where the mask slips. You may not want to believe it because the person is close, trusted, or familiar, yet God will nudge you again, reminding you that He sees what you don't. When God reveals a threat, it is because the harm that person could cause is greater than the pain you will feel from losing them. God's warnings are always connected to your destiny, not your emotions. He is preparing you for what He is about to release. And He cannot bless you fully while you are connected to someone who was sent to drain the very strength you need. Warnings are evidence of God's commitment to your future. They are not obstacles. They are invitations to trust. They are reminders that you are chosen, seen, and guided. The enemy plans attacks in the shadows, but God exposes them in the light. The enemy tries to send sabotage through people, but God reveals them before they strike. When God warns you about a man, even if the name shocks you, even if the truth breaks you, even if the revelation surprises you, remember this: His warning is His love. It is His shield around your destiny. It is His preparation for your next level. And it is proof that you were chosen long before the attack was planned. The greatest danger to a chosen one rarely comes from distant enemies or unknown forces. It comes from the people who have been allowed close enough to study the rhythms of your life. Strangers cannot betray you because betrayal requires access, intimacy, and trust. The real threat is always wrapped in familiarity. It's the person who knows how to calm you when you're upset, who understands your vulnerabilities, who remembers your weaknesses, and who has learned how to speak to the softer parts of your soul. This is why God's warning is so urgent. You are not dealing with an outsider. You are dealing with someone who has been sitting at your table, someone who has walked with you, laughed with you, and maybe even prayed with you. Proximity is powerful, and when the wrong person gets close, their influence becomes dangerous long before their intentions become visible. Chosen ones often struggle with this reality because they have a big heart. They want to believe the best in people. They want to see potential, and they want to extend grace. But the enemy studies generosity. He looks for people who feel deeply, trust naturally, and love openly. Then he plants individuals who appear innocent, supportive, or loyal until their true motives start to emerge. The danger doesn't show up as a storm at first. It shows up as a slow leak, a gentle draining of your energy, a subtle lowering of your confidence, a quiet dimming of your passion, a repeated questioning of your purpose. Someone close will begin speaking words that sound caring, but carry discouragement. They might pretend to protect you while actually limiting you. They may offer advice that pushes you away from your destiny instead of toward it. Because when someone has access, they don't need to attack loudly. They can influence quietly. This is why God whispers warnings long before the betrayal hits. You may notice a change in their behavior. You may feel discomfort around them for no clear reason. You may catch a tone, a glance, or a comment that reveals something beneath the surface. Your spirit might resist what your emotions try to accept. That tension is not random. It is God pulling back the curtain. Familiarity can blind you, but discernment opens your eyes. The enemy knows that the easiest way to destroy a chosen one is not through warfare from the outside, but manipulation from the inside. The person who can hurt you the most is the one you trust the most. Some people enter your life with agendas that are disguised as friendship, partnership, or companionship. They know how to blend in. They know how to mirror your values. They know how to act like they want the best for you. But deep down, their presence has a purpose, and not one that comes from God. They might be jealous of your growth, intimidated by your calling, threatened by your potential, or secretly hoping to see you fail. Yet they stay close because destruction is easier when the guard is down. The enemy does not send obvious attackers. He sends familiar voices. He doesn't use strangers to break your spirit. He uses the ones you care about. The shock comes not from the warning, but from the identity of the person God exposes. It's painful because you never expected the threat to be so close. You never imagined that someone who smiled with you could also be someone who sabotages you. But this is the pattern of spiritual warfare. Proximity creates opportunity. Judas dined with Jesus. Delilah loved Samson. Cain walked with Abel. The threat wasn't outside, it was beside them. God is revealing this truth because your next level requires protected access. Your calling demands boundaries. Your purpose cannot afford open doors to the wrong people. When God begins to show you who someone really is, He is not trying to embarrass you. He is trying to save you from a wound that could delay your destiny. Trust the warning, even when the name surprises you, because the danger was never about the distance. It was always about the closeness. There are moments in life when your spirit begins to speak before your mind can understand what is happening. You may not have seen evidence. You may not have heard any rumors. You may not have witnessed anything suspicious with your own eyes, but something inside you keeps whispering, pay attention. That inner nudge, that quiet uneasiness, that sudden loss of peace is not anxiety, not paranoia, not overthinking. It is spiritual intelligence. It is God placing a signal in your heart because danger is operating behind a curtain you cannot yet see. Chosen ones often underestimate the power of discernment because it feels vague, invisible, or hard to explain. But discernment doesn't rely on physical proof. Discernment relies on divine truth. Your spirit picks up what your eyes aren't trained to notice. Some people carry intentions that don't match their words. Some carry jealousy beneath their smiles, resentment behind their compliments, or manipulation hidden beneath gestures of support. And while your emotions may trust them and your logic may accept them, your spirit, the deepest God-connected part of you, feels the misalignment instantly. When you start feeling drained after talking to someone, that is discernment. When your peace collapses in their presence, that is discernment. When your dreams feel smaller around them, that is discernment. When your confidence evaporates after their advice, that is discernment. These reactions have nothing to do with mood. They have everything to do with spiritual detection. Chosen ones often try to rationalize these sensations away. You say to yourself, maybe I'm just tired, or maybe I'm reading too much into it, or maybe I should give them another chance. But every time you silence that inner voice, the discomfort returns stronger. That is because God will not allow a chosen one to overlook a threat that could sabotage their purpose. He speaks first in whispers, then in nudges, then in warnings, and if ignored long enough, He exposes the person completely, not because He wants to shock you, but because He wants to shield you. The uneasiness you feel is often the first stage of God's protection. Spiritual intuition is a gift, not a burden. It is a radar that detects what is spiritually off long before it becomes physically visible. It is God revealing energy, motives, and intentions that your human senses can't process. You may notice that the conversations feel heavy, even when the topic is light. You may feel tension in your body when they walk into a room. You may feel your joy dim for no reason. You may feel confused after interacting with them, even though nothing bad was said. These are not coincidences. These are indicators that your spirit knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. Discernment is God's early alert system. He sees what you don't. He hears what you can't. He knows what they say when you're not there. Your spirit responds to truths you haven't discovered yet. When someone's soul is not aligned with yours, when their intentions are not pure, when their heart is not clean toward you, your spirit becomes restless because it recognizes the spiritual mismatch. Some people carry a presence that conflicts with your purpose, and your spirit reacts instantly to that spiritual invasion. Chosen ones must learn to value this gift. It exists for your protection. It is not just a feeling, it is God's voice inside you. While you may want to trust someone because of history, connection, or emotional attachment, God wants to protect your destiny, your peace, your calling, and your future. So when your spirit starts signaling danger, listen, don't wait for betrayal to confirm what the Holy Spirit already revealed. The discomfort is the proof. The uneasiness is the message. The spiritual resistance is the warning. And if you honor that warning, you will avoid wounds that were designed to break you before your blessings arrive. There comes a point in every chosen person's life when God begins to separate them from the people who cannot handle, understand, or support the calling resting on their life. Not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. Not everyone who walked with you in one season is qualified to walk with you into the next. Some people were good for the journey behind you, but they are too small, too fragile, too conflicted, or too spiritually blind for the road that lies ahead. When God begins elevating you, He also begins exposing who is not meant to rise with you. And often the person He warns you about is someone you feel connected to, comfortable with, or emotionally tied to. Yet comfort is not destiny, and connection is not confirmation. Your calling demands a level of protection that requires certain people to stay behind. Growth has a way of revealing the hearts of the people around you. When God starts expanding you, stretching you, or blessing you, the intentions of those close to you surface naturally. Some celebrate you openly, some support you quietly, others feel threatened by your progress. Their words begin to shift, their tone becomes sharp, their behavior becomes inconsistent, their presence becomes heavy. They might smile, but their spirit flinches when you talk about your dreams. They might encourage you, but there is a hidden fear that you will outgrow them. People like this cannot go with you because they don't love your calling. They love the version of you that stays small enough to make them comfortable. And then there are those who simply cannot carry the weight of what God is doing in your life. They may not be evil, jealous, or malicious, but they are unprepared for the spiritual intensity of your assignment. God has to separate you from certain individuals because they would collapse under pressure if they followed you into your future. They would misunderstand your battles, question your process, and interfere with your obedience. Not because they wish you harm, but because they are not built for the level you are stepping into. God removes people not only to protect you from them, but sometimes to protect them from the magnitude of your calling. There are times when God will allow a relationship to slowly fade, become uncomfortable, or fall apart, not because of arguments, misunderstandings, or mistakes, but because He is shifting your spiritual geography. You are outgrowing conversations, habits, and environments that used to fit you. The person He is warning you about represents a part of your life that cannot survive in your next chapter. Their mindset is too limited. Their perspective is too narrow. Their presence is too distracting. They function as an anchor when God needs you to soar. You may feel guilty letting go, but destiny requires decisions that feelings do not always agree with. Moving forward often means leaving behind what no longer aligns. When God highlights someone and says, this person cannot go with you, it is because their presence would cost you clarity, peace, strength, or purpose. They would drain the energy you need for what God is calling you to build. They would slow your pace just when God is accelerating your life. They would create emotional confusion when God is trying to give you spiritual direction. Some people are seasonal, some are lessons, some are assignments, and some are obstacles disguised as companions. The man God is warning you about may not be an enemy, he may simply be out of alignment. Keeping him close would block doors, delay breakthroughs, or weaken your focus. If you take him into your next season, you will carry unnecessary weight that God never intended for you to bear. Your destiny is too valuable to be shared with someone who is not prepared for the level you are stepping into. When God removes someone, it is because he is making room for someone better aligned, better equipped, and better designed for the future he has planned for you. Letting them go is not loss. It is preparation for elevation. When God exposes the truth about someone close to you, the revelation does not come softly. It often arrives like a blow to the heart, a shock to the spirit, a moment where your breath catches because the name God reveals is not the name you expected. It may be someone you trusted deeply, someone you defended, someone you invested in emotionally, financially, or spiritually. That sudden exposure feels like a wound because betrayal always carries the sting of surprise. You ask yourself, how could this be? How did I not see it? How did someone so close carry intentions so dangerous? But what feels like devastation at first is actually divine liberation. God exposes to protect, not to punish. He reveals so he can release you. He uncovers so he can elevate you. The shock is necessary because without it you would stay bound. Sometimes God must let the truth hit you hard enough that you cannot return to the place he is calling you out of. If the exposure was gentle, you might ignore it. If it was subtle, you might justify it. If it was soft, you might excuse it. But chosen ones have a tendency to hold on too long, forgive too quickly, and overlook too easily. So God exposes the truth in a way that removes all doubt, all confusion, all hesitation. The revelation may hurt, but it saves you from a deeper wound that was waiting in the future. It is a smaller heartbreak compared to the destruction that would have come if God had remained silent. Once the exposure happens, you will start to see patterns you missed before. You will notice inconsistencies, attitudes, and behaviors that were always there but hidden behind your trust. Suddenly, the conversations make sense. The strange feelings you ignored begin to line up. The uneasy moments you brushed off start to speak loudly. God's exposure brings clarity where there was confusion, direction where there was hesitation, and closure where there was emotional entanglement. What once felt foggy now becomes obvious. The mask falls off and the real intentions are revealed, not to shame the other person, but to free your spirit. The liberation that comes after exposure is something you feel in your soul. You will notice your peace returning, your joy lifting, your mind clearing. The heaviness that followed you for months disappears almost instantly. You will sleep better, you will breathe deeper, you will think sharper. The emotional and spiritual weight that came from keeping the wrong person close will fall off because their presence was draining more from you than you realized. God's exposure doesn't just show you who the other person really was, it shows you who you are without their influence. It shows you the strength, clarity, and freedom you forgot you had. Yes, the truth hurts, but the truth also heals. It breaks illusions but builds destiny. It removes poison but restores purpose. Exposure is God's way of saying, I love you too much to let you stay connected to someone who was never meant to carry a future with you. The shock is temporary, but the freedom is lasting. And with that freedom comes acceleration. Your life begins to move again. Creativity opens, opportunities appear, energy returns, vision sharpens. You start stepping into your calling with confidence instead of confusion. When God exposes someone, don't cling to the hurt, cling to the lesson. Don't hold on to the betrayal, hold on to the clarity. Don't mourn who they were, celebrate who you are becoming. The exposure was not to break your spirit, it was to save it. It was to remove a destructive voice that was shaping your future in the wrong direction. It was to protect the assignment on your life. The pain may echo for a moment, but the freedom that follows will echo for a lifetime. Obedience to God's warning is one of the greatest tests a chosen one will ever face, because it forces you to make decisions that your heart may not agree with, but your spirit knows are right. When God reveals the truth about a person, He is not asking for your opinion or your comfort. He is asking for your obedience. He is inviting you to trust Him beyond what you see, what you feel, and what you hope that relationship would become. Every elevation in your life requires a separation, and every separation requires obedience. You cannot carry everyone into your next level, especially those God has identified as dangerous, draining, or misaligned with your destiny. When God warns you and you obey, you are choosing your purpose over your emotions, your future over your history, and God's voice over your own desires. The challenge is that obedience often feels like loss at first. Letting someone go, especially someone familiar, creates a moment of emptiness, a sense of uncertainty, a quiet ache in the soul. You may miss their presence, even though it was unhealthy. You may miss their voice, even though it was misleading. You may miss their companionship, even though it was damaging your spirit. Chosen ones carry deep hearts, and deep hearts feel deeply. But obedience is not about how you feel in the moment. It's about where God is taking you beyond the moment. God sees the future you cannot see. He sees the traps you would fall into if you stayed connected. He sees the consequences of ignoring His warning. Obedience becomes the bridge between the threat you escaped and the destiny you are walking into. When God removes someone, He is creating space for something better aligned, something healthier, something stronger. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. You cannot plant new seeds in soil that is contaminated. You cannot step into divine purpose while holding on to connections that suffocate your spirit. Every time you obey God's warning, you shift your spiritual positioning. You move into a place where God can trust you with more wisdom, more influence, more blessings, more responsibility. Disobedience clutters the path, but obedience clears it. When you let go of the wrong person, doors begin to open. When you release what God told you to release, opportunities begin to flow. Your next season is always unlocked on the other side of obedience. Obedience also strengthens your spiritual muscles. It teaches you to hear clearly, move quickly, and trust deeply. It breaks the cycle of emotional dependence, breaking you free from relationships that were built on convenience rather than destiny. It sharpens your discernment, helping you recognize red flags sooner, understand divine signals faster, and protect your heart more wisely. Each time you obey God, your spirit matures. You begin to see relationships differently. You stop holding on to people out of fear of being alone. You stop giving your loyalty to those who have not earned it. You stop settling for attachments that shrink your potential. Obedience becomes the foundation of your growth. What you gain through obedience will always outweigh what you lose through separation. The peace that comes after releasing the wrong person is a peace that cannot be bought or manufactured. The clarity that fills your mind is priceless. The strength that rises in your soul is undeniable. Suddenly you are lighter, freer, and more focused. You begin to move without the emotional weight you carried for so long. You begin to hear God more clearly because the noise of that unhealthy connection is gone. Obedience doesn't just protect you, it elevates you. The moment you obey, heaven responds. You may not see the shift immediately, but you will feel it. You will notice how blessings start aligning, how spiritual attacks lessen, how your creativity flows, how your vision sharpens, and how your spirit feels alive again. That is the reward of obedience. It positions you for everything God has prepared. It places you on the path of purpose. It ensures that no man, not even one you deeply cared for, can interfere with the destiny God has written for your life.